There are some ingredients that I notice in some DIY recipes for hair, and there are some that aren't going to damage hair, but if not processed properly, they can be kind of difficult to put into hair and wash out of hair. And then there are ingredients that can actually potentially be damaging. And one of the ingredients that can be damaging to hair is vinegar. Like vinegar is sometimes used to clarify hair. And if vinegar is not diluted properly, it's not diluted, mixed into water in the proper amount, and it ends up being too acidic, depending on how it's being used or how long it's being left in hair or how frequently it's being used, and then also depending on how acidic the solution ends up being, like how too acidic it is, it can cause erosion to hair. So it can basically eat away at hair, and that is permanent damage. A few things to consider when using vinegar or when thinking about using vinegar is that even if someone does have a recipe and the recipe is supposed to, is a good recipe, different kinds of vinegar have different pH levels. For example, white vinegar is generally more acidic than apple cider vinegar. There are various different factors that need to be controlled in order to get really consistent results. I would still say, even if there is a good recipe for a vinegar and water, like a solution of vinegar and water as a clarifier for hair, I would recommend that that solution be tested, because of the potential damage that can happen either short-term or through short-term use or long-term use, depending on how acidic that solution ends up being and how it's being used and all that. So I would say to be careful with baking soda. Baking soda would be a good cleaner for something like a porcelain bathtub or a sink. But hair, it's generally not, in terms of cosmetics, an ingredient that is good for hair because of how abrasive it is. It's alkaline, and even if it is, someone has some sort of recipe to try to bring it into balance, so that it's in balance with hair, it's still an abrasive. And so that doesn't go away, and that's problematic for something to be abrasive going against hair. So the risk to benefit ratio, when I think of baking soda, the risk far outweighs the possible potential perceived benefits of using it, especially since there are other ingredients that are just as widely accessible and can gently clean hair. So those are a couple of things. Those are two ingredients that I would say could potentially cause harm. I would say baking soda is just a definite no. I mean, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion, that it's definitely a no because of the alkalinity and the abrasiveness. And then I've also noticed the use of vinegar and baking soda, some sort of mixture or some sort of routine. And I just think something like vinegar that is too acidic for hair and skin with the potential to cause erosion, and then baking soda that is too alkaline for hair and abrasive, and combining them somehow or putting them into some sort of routine, in my opinion, those are very unrefined methods or attempts to cleanse hair. That's just my opinion, and that's just looking at risk to benefit, all the potential things that can go wrong in terms of balancing those ingredients, and then of course the abrasiveness of baking soda. I also noticed that sometimes people will put honey on hair, and it's got a lot of really good properties in it, and it's a humectant. I would say if it's going to be applied to hair, that it be applied to wet hair so that it has water that it's drawing in. Yeah, and then I'm not sure if there are other effects, if there are any side effects to using honey. I'm not sure if there are any others. There could possibly be some other things that honey may do that may not be desirable, but I would check that out just to be careful. Non-toxic home ingredients are good for certain things, but it doesn't mean that they're good for everything and they should be applied on everything, or that they are the optimal things to use on certain things. So I would just say heads up on some ingredients. DIY is not always harmless. There can be some harm that is created in the use of certain ingredients if they're not being used properly, and then there's some ingredients that shouldn't be used at all.